Welcome to the Game or Die podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Moore. This is episode 63, and it's been a while. And that's because life has kind of gotten in the way of me podcasting and playing games over the last month and a half or so. It is now after Thanksgiving, so we're in the full Christmas swing of things, which is always my favorite time of year, and I'm super, super excited. However, because of that, I do have a lot of life responsibilities to do. My wife and I are going out of town. We are also putting on a dog show. We also have my wife's birthday and our anniversary and Christmas all within just the next few weeks. So game time has been limited and is going to continue to be limited for the foreseeable future for me. And so, unfortunately, I just don't have a whole ton of game talk to talk about, but I did want to record something. I do want to talk about the games that I have been playing because I have been playing a few. So, I'm just going to get right into the game talk, which would be the first thing is I finally finished Stray, which I'm super excited about because my wife and I started playing this game back in the summer. And because of the massive amount of things that have happened during the summer and fall, that we were not able to finish it until just a couple weeks ago. And what's really interesting too is that game's like 5 hours long. I think it took us like 5.5 hours to finish it. And we were very, very close to the end, about an hour and a half-ish away from the end, maybe about an hour away from the end. And we had to put it down. And unfortunately, this is one of those games that my wife and I play together. So I was not able to move on and finish it until she came back. She was out of town for a while and stuff like that. And so scheduling just kind of, conflicted with finishing this game up for a little bit. And when we did, it was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. I did not expect Stray to go as deep into the emotional state that it did. It's a pretty heavy game in certain parts, which the studio that developed it, I don't know if it was straight up Annapurna or if Annapurna is just the publisher, but it's a pretty emotional game, which they're kind of known for doing some of that type of stuff, but I did not think it was going to be so heavy in certain aspects. Right from the get-go, you get a lot of empathy towards this cat because poor little cat hurts its legs and is limping along like within the first 3 minutes of the game. And you're just sitting there going, oh my gosh, this poor cat. And then it's being attacked by monsters. The little dirty, grimy alien muck monsters, I guess you would call them. But it's a pretty interesting game. I really, really enjoyed it. I love the aspect of the characters in it other than your cat character that you play as. You play as the character of the cat, and then everyone else in the game are all robots. And it's really, really interesting that the way they display these robots, they're very human-like. And even your little helper bot that sticks with you throughout the entire game, it's really, really interesting to see the ideas that they came up with to explain why robots are inhabiting this world versus humans. And the game takes place in the far-flung future, and basically you are this cat that gets trapped in this city that is locked down in darkness. And it's been that way for decades, eons, who knows, like exactly. I can't remember if they actually state how long it's been that the city is basically underground in this like bunker, and you have to go and open up the bunker basically. It's kind of like Fallout in a way, which is interesting. But that's the game itself is like a platformer, and you play as this cat and you're jumping around, and it's just really fun and enjoyable. And I had a blast throughout the entire gaming session that we had. We played it about 3 nights over the course of the end of the summer and fall. And when we sat down and played it, we were just enthralled by how rich the atmosphere of that game is. Like everything just feels like it's been lived in. It's been eroding and rotting away for decades because the way that the upkeep and nature's kind of taking over these industrialized areas, and then all the robots have all their own unique personality, which is really interesting and cool too. Like, I cannot say enough good things about this game. It is one of those games, especially because it's Annapurna who puts it out. They're known to be a little bit pretentious in some aspects. They're also known to, and I kind of see this coming from a mile away, but some of their games that they put out have more message that I don't like supporting in certain games. And I was a little bit wary of it, but I'm really glad I bought it and played it because it was a phenomenal game all the way through. There's no weird messaging in the game at all. It, yeah, it probably does kind of go a little heavy handed in the, oh, we're humans and we're terrible because we, destroy the earth and blah, 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 Mother Nature type of stuff. But it's not too deep into that. Like, it's a very an underlying message, but it's not heavy-handed in the way that it's portrayed, which is nice because I hate when games get preachy like that, especially nowadays. Within the last several years, it's like keep that crap out of the game. If you have your own personal agenda that you're trying to push, like go push it somewhere else. Go go to Twitter or something like that. But I really, really enjoyed the game. I think it's definitely gonna be in my top 10 games that I'll be recording that podcast hopefully in the next couple of weeks here. Because we're at the end of the year, man. How crazy is that? I'm super stoked about it, but it's also, excuse me, a two-edged sword. And the reason why is because this has been an absolutely terrible year for video games. And I believe I said that last year. I believe I said it the year before. And I believe I might have even said it the year before that. The last couple of years have been just garbage with the amount of games that have been put out and the quality of those games that are being put out. Yes, there are exceptions. And yes, there are a lot of good games being put out, but they're few and far between compared to 5 years ago. 5 years ago, we had just mountains and buttloads of games just dropping from the sky on a weekly basis. And now you can blame the pandemic. You can blame a bunch of different extra stuff. But at the end of the day, when we look back on these last few years of gaming in a decade or so, like a lot of people do, we're just going to go, man, what the heck happened? Why was there so little amount of good games being put out? There are good games, but it is a lot harder to find. But I do believe Stray is one of them, and I really enjoyed it. So it will probably almost most definitely be on my top 10 games this year, only for the fact that I think I'm having a hard time coming up with 10 games that came out this year, I played and finished. Um, and I got to kind of do a little bit of self reflection for my game of the year list this year, just solely for the fact that there are so little few games. And when I do my game of the year list, I really don't like putting on games that I haven't finished. It's very, very difficult for me to make a reason why I should put a game on my list if I didn't finish it. And I've had that issue with a lot of people over the years, especially like sites like Giant Bomb, where they would say, "Oh yeah, this is our game of the year," but like literally no one except for maybe one person played it, and and most people didn't even finish it. It's like you can't say it's the best, one of the best games of the year if you couldn't even give the time to play it. Unfortunately, especially with this year, the scheduling of games being released, everything dropped all at once. Like in the last month, we're talking like late October, early November, we're getting like five massive, huge games that should have been out throughout the entire year instead of being all dropped at the very, very end. And, if you are trying to make a list for the end of the year and you're in late November and you haven't even finished the majority of the big games that have come out this year because they all released within a week of each other and all are, 30 plus hour game type stuff. Like it's just, I don't understand why these companies have to release games like this anymore. Back in the early or late 90s, early 2000s, even mid 2000s, I guess. Sure, whatever. You can make the argument for Christmas releases, Black Friday releases. You want to get it for the holiday season. So you want your game to be the big thing that all the parents buy their kids. That scenario doesn't really exist anymore. Everyone can buy stuff on Amazon. Most people buy games digitally at this point. Your game suffers when it releases at the same time as everything else. I just don't understand the mentality of that. Release your game when it's finished and ready first and foremost, but also allow it to take up a space that's not occupied by anything else. How awesome would it be if Bayonetta came out in the middle of August when literally nothing else was coming out and wouldn't have come out for a couple months? Like, we all have been waiting for that game for years. And that game randomly dropped, and I think like three other massive games came out at the same exact time. I was just like, cool, Bayonetta came out. I didn't even download it for like several days because it was like, there's other stuff. And I've been waiting for that game for years, and it's one of my favorite series around right now. So, like, come on. It just makes no sense, and it really bothers me because now I'm really struggling to either rush through everything to play it for this random, arbitrary end of the year list. And back in the day, I would say my, game of the year ends in the middle of December because I love Christmas and I don't want to waste or spend my time during Christmas focusing on, some game list or anything like that, and celebrating my anniversary and, being focusing on Christmas. I want to do that stuff and not focus on, some list. So I would always have it then. But like last year, didn't even get to record the Game of the Year podcast until New Year's Eve, just because of time and games not being released the way that they have been over the last, several decades of video gaming. Now everything is like dropping on like 3 select days out of the entire year, and they're all crammed together. So that's my little mini rant for this podcast. But like I said, I really like Stray, and I finished that, and then I moved on to God of War Ragnarok. And man, I really like the God of War series. I know a lot of people have a big issue, and that's only because they're influenced by a lot of other people. They're influenced by gaming sites who um, change. I mean, I don't even want to say the phrase of it, but they basically change their minds to the point where they control what people think and say about these games, depending on which way they are wavering at that point. God of War was a huge and is a huge, massive series in video games. Heck, Kratos was basically the unspoken mascot for Sony for years, right? And all of a sudden, after God of War 3 and all that game came out and everything like that, within the last, I'd say from 2013 probably to 2017, it was God of War is terrible. You're a terrible person for liking it. It's a bad series. He's super toxic and masculine, blah, 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 and all this stupid crap. And it's just like, I don't want to hear about that because those same people were praising those games when they first originally came out. And then um, they, started spouting all this nonsense. And I'm just like, I'm not going to listen to any of that crap because it's all garbage, anyways. I really like that series. I fell in love with God of War when the second game was just about to come out. And it's thanks to my friend Sam, her husband, James, was talking to me about God of War. And I was never a big Sony guy. I've never been a big PlayStation Sony guy. But I do like the console. I do like the company. I do like their games. It's just I've never been a fanboy and I've never really gravitated toward the PlayStation brand. But I think it was around the time it was around the time 300 the movie came out and Kingdom Hearts 2 came out. And Kingdom Hearts is a very special game and for me for the fact that my sister actually was really into Kingdom Hearts and we played that together and it's one of the few games that we've ever really connected over. And so it kind of holds a special place in my heart. And I was playing Kingdom Hearts 2 and James was talking to me about God of War and he let me borrow the game. He came over, the next night or whatever. He's like, I'm going to bring God of War. You're going to borrow it and you're going to love it. And I played the first original God of War like 2 days before God of War 2 came out. And I just devoured it. I played through the whole thing in just a couple of days and a couple sittings. And then I immediately went out and bought God of War 2 on opening day, on launch day, and devoured that too. And I loved it. And then when God of War 3 came out, I bought it on opening day. And I think I was running my game store at the time too. And I took it home and just played it all night. I was so excited. And I really love the Greek mythology about it all. And just diving into the world that they create and talking about all the different pantheon of gods and stuff like that. And just, especially at that time too, how old I was and just my attitude towards life in general and the world. It was just like, here's this awesome, massive, hulking dude of a guy. And he was just angry and pissed off at everyone and smashing people's faces. And it was bloody, it was gory, it was disgusting, and it was awesome. And then once that series kind of ended, and they ended the series with 3. And then they tried to do like that weird thing that they did during that time to keep the franchise alive while the console generation was like on its last legs, where it should have ended and we didn't get new consoles for a couple more years. And so they started like pulling out these weird like offshoot spin-off series of a franchise. Like it was God of War Judgment, I think it was called. No, God of War Ascension. And then we got Gears of War Judgment as well. So like the GOWs, for whatever reason, the God of War and Gears of War games both got these weird like 0.5 offshoot games, and no one wanted them. No one thought they were good. They did really bad, and they just soured everyone's perceptions of these console games. And then in 2018, God of War 2018 came out. It's kind of like the working title. It's just titled God of War, but everyone knows it as God of War 2018 or the PS4 version because the original God of War back in, the mid 2000s. So I played God of War 2018 when it came out. I was super stoked on it, and just the way that they matured Kratos and made him that father figure where he was still pissed off, he was still grumpy and angry and just hardened heart type of character. It was really interesting. And then as you play through the game, like you are trying to bring Atreus up, his son, in the ways of, the way Kratos wants his son to behave and act. And then you also get the bratty version of Atreus at some point. Like he kind of starts realizing like he's very special. And then he takes on this like just a-hole kid type of characteristic. And it's like really funny and interesting. And you just want to kill the character yourself. You're like, this kid is a punk. This kid is such a jerk. Oh, I hope he dies. Oh, he's just being so annoying. And I thought they just did a fantastic job. I didn't think that they needed a sequel. They left it open, and obviously it did so well that they just straight up went into a sequel. And I was excited for it, but I was like, yeah, I think it'll be good, but I'm not like overhyped about it. I don't get hyped about a lot of games anymore just because of the way the gaming industry is. When you get sequels to games that don't need sequels, a lot of time they go off the rails. A lot of times the higher budget alone does not justify a sequel. And so far, because I haven't finished it, it's been a couple of weeks now since it's been out, but I've been really, really busy with life, so I haven't really gotten to finish it yet. But I am loving Ragnarok. It's a continuation of that more mature Kratos and Atreus, and you really feel for the characters. You really get a sense of like, wow, they've gone through some stuff and they're really working these things out and they're trying their best. And, as a person with my own faults and own issues with anger and things like that, and just being pissed off at the world or the circumstances surrounding me, I can definitely see like certain aspects where, like, man, you know, other people go through this type of stuff too. Definitely not the same type of stuff. I'm not dealing with like family members trying to kill me or anything like that, or being drowned by a hydra or something. But I can definitely relate a lot more as I've grown older over the years, and that, early PS2 version of Kratos has matured into this much more forgiving version and this much more sympathetic version. It's really interesting. And I can see a lot of like characteristics where I go, man, maybe I should take on that type of quality characteristic where it's like, you don't need to judge this, or you don't need to be pissed off at that. You can really take the high road and you can learn to work through this stuff by just talking it out with people instead of just assuming the worst. So I really do think that's a very awesome and interesting part of these games. And, it's definitely a video game where you're ripping things apart and stabbing, murdering things too. And it's really cool. Like there is some just brutal stuff. Like there is a werewolf enemy in the game, and it's the most brutal kill that you can do, where you fight this werewolf and you have this meter, this like special stun meter that you build up as you fight the characters. And if you build up that stun meter, they get stunned, and you have the R3 button, or the click stick of the right stick to click in, and you will be able to go through and do this like killing animation. The killing animation for the werewolf, you like beat him up a couple of times, then you take his jaw, and then you just not just break and rip the jaw, kind of like in King Kong, like Peter Jackson's King Kong, where King Kong takes the T-Rex and breaks the jaw by ripping it in half. But you take the jaw, you pry the jaws open, break their mouth, and continue to pull. And you pull off the front part of the werewolf's, not just mouth, but all the way down to like its abdomen. And it is just unbelievably brutal. And I just laughed the first time I saw it. I went, oh my gosh. And I do that every time pretty much because it is just so over the top. So awesome to see this just unadulterated violence and gore in this game, which is something that I do love about video games. We don't get that enough. And I'm not talking about just like ultra over the violence for the sake of ultra over the violence. You'll get, games like Mortal Kombat, which is like the end all be all. Like the fatalities of the last couple of Mortal Kombats just keep upping the ante. And you're like, how are they doing that? And there's definitely other video games that just try to push the envelope for, again, pushing the envelope's sake. And I don't like that. But there is something just like the the little boy in me is just so wide-eyed and, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're showing that type of, feeling to it. And it's like, man, remember when video games were just fun? Again, just kind of tying back into what I was saying earlier too. You don't need to preach. You don't need to push a bunch of agendas and messages in the games. You can just make a fun game. And that is something that I really hope video games come back to a lot more. It is different and difficult because video games are so much bigger than they used to be. I talk about this a lot where Nintendo and Super Nintendo and Genesis, that late 80s, early 90s era, even PlayStation 1 and Nintendo 64 and Saturn and all that, you had a handful of several handfuls of games, and that was it over the course of the entire console's lifespan. Like, you look at the Nintendo and Super Nintendo and Genesis is a catalog of games, and they're 7, 8, 900 games. That's it. And then when you look at the era of self-publishing and indies on the 360 and PlayStation 4, and now like with everything on PC as well, it's like there's literally hundreds of thousands of video games now. There's like, I think there's 12,000 games just on Steam alone. And I think they're releasing like several hundred games a day at this point. Anyone can make a game of any length for basically free. And just video games are so big now that anyone can do it. And when people get their hands on something they can do for free or very easily and basic, you'll get a lot of garbage. And there's so much garbage in video games now. And again, this kind of ties into that whole like people pushing agendas. They have a chip on their shoulder for whatever reason, and then they start pushing some sort of agenda. And it's like, dude, you don't need to do that. Video games can just be fun. And I do like a lot of story-based video games. I think I gravitate more towards that, and the majority of the games that I do play are story-based, where the majority of the game is a through story. But there's definitely games where I'm just like, man, give me some mechanics. Just make the game fun. There's, people, and a Giant Bomb was a big part of this for me, listening to people who had just so different opinions on video games, where they would, some of the people would be like, no, I play video games for the gameplay, period. That's it. I hate stories. I hate anything that has to do with a story. I click through the story. I skip every cutscene. I don't care. And it's like, wow, that seems really like hardcore. Like that sounds stupid, because the intent, and I kind of talked about this on my other podcast that I do, Couch Cash Repeat, which is our Couch Money Discord podcast. I talked about it there, where I think a lot of people just get so hung up on trying to do something for no reason at all. And it's because like this stuff is art. This is someone's art that they're making this game. And if you're just pushing through every cutscene, they're trying to convey different types of emotions to the viewer and the player. And those cutscenes mean more to the people creating the game than the gameplay does half of the time, especially when you're getting into indie type games. But there's the flip side of the coin too. In games like, my wife and I were just flipping through Game Pass, and she was wanting to find a new game. There's a game called, Dead Cells. She was like, what's Dead Cells? I'm like, you're not going to like that game. And she was watching it, and the trailer was not even a trailer for the actual game. It was just a bunch of animation. And I was like, yeah, you just believe me, you wouldn't really like this game. And then she watched a trailer for a game called Genesis Noir, and she's actually playing that right now as I record this. And I watched about the first 15 minutes of it, and I went, "Oh, I really like what the style of this game. It's a point and click kind of weird, not archaic, but atmospheric, abstract type of game. And I don't think it's really up her alley. I think she's just trying to try out something new. And even as I was coming down here to record, I was like, hey, I'm going to go record my podcast. And she said, okay, I don't know if I'm going to continue playing this game. And I was like, yeah, I like that game. I think I like the idea of that game. I'm just not in the mood to play that game myself personally right now. But I could see myself in like on a weekend evening just digging through that game. Same thing with something like Kentucky Route Zero, which I really, really want to finish. I only played the first episode, and that was a couple years ago, and I really liked that game. But there's definitely atmospheric games that I want to play. Is just I got to be in the mood for. But I love that stuff. But again, like I said, the flip side of the coin is that there can be just games where the whole game is gameplay and mechanics, and that's it. And I love those games too. Give me a Super Mario Brothers, I'll play through that thing in a single sitting. I love those games too. That's what I love about being a video gamer now and doing something like this podcast and having the website to talk about reviews and articles and stuff like that I can write to show people you don't need to take one side or the other. You can just enjoy stuff whenever you feel like it. You don't have to go hardcore like some of those other gaming media where it has to be this and that's it. It's like, no, you can enjoy this and you can enjoy that and you can enjoy everything in between as well. Like, and if you don't enjoy it, it's not that big of a deal. And it doesn't mean that that game sucks. It doesn't mean that the creators are idiots. It just means that you didn't personally like it. And like, I just don't understand the mentality of people, where it has to be cut and dry. It has to be one way or the other, and that's it. I think that's a really stupid and bad way to play video games. But for for bringing it back around to the subject matter of God of War Ragnarok, I haven't finished it yet. I'm probably about halfway through, or probably more than halfway, but close to 3/4, not there yet. And I am loving every stinking second of it. It's great. The combat's really, really fun. There is more story than I thought there was gonna be, probably, but that's not a bad thing. Again, I really like the story. I love the cutscenes. I love the dialogue. It's just longer than I thought it was going to be. I wasn't anticipating it being so freaking big. Excuse me. So I'm really excited to finish it. I have no idea when I'm going to. I have so many other games I want to play too, and it's just one of those things where I cannot play other games while I'm in the middle of that type of game. I got to finish that and then move on to Bayonetta 3 and then move on to the Horizon series because I got a PS5 and I really want to play Forbidden West, which is the sequel to Horizon Zero Dawn. And I have Horizon Zero Dawn and I've been trying to play through that, but I keep getting interrupted and then putting it down for months on end or years on end. But that's really all I've been playing. I haven't really played anything other than that. I tried doing our game of the month, game of the year. Yeah. But our Couch Money Discord server, which you can go to couchmoney.org for our website for that, which is also another podcast and website that I run. But we have this thing going on where it's the game of the month. Every month, we as a community decide on a new game to play as a community for that month. And November's was Fallout New Vegas, and I was super, super excited for it. I pushed it really hard. I wanted to play this game really, really badly because I was watching a lot of stuff about Fallout. I was kind of reading some stuff and I was just kind of getting into the Fallout mood. I was like, man, playing Fallout in VR is so interesting. But I played through that game. I dumped several, like I think 100 and something hours into that game. I've seen pretty much all there is to see. I need to finish up like a DLC and that's it. But I've seen pretty much everything there is to see. I want something new. I want a new experience, but in the Fallout world. And the I never really played much Fallout 3. Just didn't like it. And that was back when it first came out. I remember playing a little bit of Fallout 3. I had a modded Xbox 360. So I downloaded Fallout 3. I threw it in, and this was the year that Fallout 3 and Gears of War 2 came out. Uh, and man, I couldn't wait to play Gears of War 2. And so I played a little bit of Fallout 3. I got to the first city, I dropped the nuke, and then I just went, I don't like this. And I never played it again. And I took out that burned DVD, put in burned DVD of Gears of War 2, and then proceeded to play that. And then and then I also played it online with a bunch of friends from church and stuff, and we played Horde mode, and holy crap, that game was so good. Horde mode was awesome, but it's one of those types of games that I really want to play. I want to play more Fallout, but I just did not like 3. And then I remembered, oh, Obsidian made Fallout New Vegas, which is like this weird in between of 3 and 4. And whenever I look up like stuff about Fallout, people just fall over themselves trying to recommend New Vegas over everything else. You look at any article online about good Fallout games, New Vegas is at the top. And I never really understood why. So in the Discord server, I kept continually talking about, hey, I want to understand why people like New Vegas over 4, because I really like 4. I think it does an excellent job of doing a really interesting story. I know a lot of people hate that game, and I don't get why. Um, and then I, especially with VR, I think just the VR component just elevates that game to an entirely new level. It is unlike anything you've ever done in your life playing Fallout 4 in VR. And I've made a video on this. I don't think I've ever, I need to finish that. I keep saying I need to finish my VR video, but holy crap. I give an example, and it's my like go-to example of why VR is amazing. And it's just you can do things in VR games that you can't do in the flat, normal video game version because you are working in a three-dimensional space in the game world, which you are living in with VR. And it's just so cool. But I want to play VR, or sorry, I want to play New Vegas. And so I really championed for it to be our game of the month. And it did win, and I was excited about it. I played about 10-ish hours, I believe, and I didn't get to pick it up for the rest of the month. The rest of the month just flew by. We had family in, we had, a holiday, and we just had so much extra stuff going on that I just did not get to play it. And it was a real bummer because like I was so excited, and I felt bad because I kind of really like pushed hard for this to be our game of the month, and then no one talked about it after like the first couple of days. But hey, you know, that's life. It happens sometimes. It's not a big deal, but I do want to get back to that at some point. And then for our game of the month for December, because of, everything going on and all this stuff and planning, vacations and stuff too, I'm like, man, I'm not going to be able to get in much gaming in December either. So what do I want to do? I want to make it special. I love doing that, and that's what I love about the whole, like, game of the month thing is making something special and having everyone kind of do the same thing and talk about it. It's really it encourages a lot of great discussion. So, what I decided, because there was no suggestions at all, I just said, "Hey, what if we do I was like, why don't we just do a whole kind of on your own? Like, you just play whatever you want and just talk about it. But we kind of already have a channel called Currently Playing. So whatever you're currently playing, you can kind of talk about it in that channel." So I was like, that doesn't really work. But what if we do a kind of a retro month where we lock it to 8 and 16-bit consoles, 16-bit games, and just play those. And so that's what our December game of the month is. And I know I kind of switch between Game or Die and Couch Money, and um, I'm trying to kind of balance that a little bit. But basically, I run everything for those things. Game or Die is my own personal thing. Couch Money is kind of my own personal thing too. That just has a community, and I think it's really cool, and I want it to grow, but I'm the one kind of pushing a lot of it more than anything else, and so I wanted to do something really special, and I think that game of the month being retro thing, it's really cool. So load up Launchbox, play some 8-bit classics, play some 16-bit classics, talk about it in the channel, and like that's kind of what I hope happens. And I have my own Discord server for Game or Die. You can go to gameordie.net and there's just a link for the Discord server. There's no one in there. Um, and it's just me. And I've had it for a couple years now and I've never posted anything in there. And it's just because I don't really know what to do with it. Um, but if you do join, let me know and I'll be more than happy to post some stuff. I think I've got some really interesting ideas. It's just I need the time to capitalize on them. I need the time to be able to implement them properly. I want to have a lot of really cool stuff in there, but who knows when that's going to happen. I hope it happens sooner than later. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Game or Die podcast. So we're rounding out the end of the year very close here. I'll probably do one, maybe two more podcasts this month, hopefully, if I get the time. I love doing these podcasts. I love talking about video games. I really hope you enjoy listening to them. If you are listening, thank you. Thank you. Seriously, that's it. That's all I have to say about that is just thank you for listening. I appreciate it. I want to talk to people about video games, and I think this is one of my favorite ways to do that. And it just gives me an allowance to be able to say what I want about these games and kind of really dive into why I think certain games are good versus why they are not good and all that fun stuff. But if you want to check out any of my reviews for any of the games, you can go to gameordie.net, which is the website. It's all self-hosted, and I had some big, massive issues, and that's also why I haven't been recording and doing the podcast. Is we had a lot of issues with the internet going out and our data being destroyed and removed, and doing backups of websites, and I self-host everything as well. So that's been kind of a little bit of a difficult time in my household of me trying to figure out why are my servers down? Why do I have corrupted data for no reason at all? I have my backup. Where's my backup? Why did my backup get corrupted? All that type of fun stuff. But everything should be pretty much back up and running now. Very nice and secure and on battery backups as well. So everything should be good. But I love video games, and something that I talked about on the Couch Money podcast was gaming magazines, which I think I don't think I know that they are awesome, and I miss them a whole heck of a lot. But again, you can go to the website couchmoney.org. That will take you to the Discord server, or my personal website gameordie.net, which has all my reviews and videos and all that fun stuff. Again, thank you very much for listening. I've been your host, Ryan Moore, and I will catch you next time.